Want to watch football without the restrictions of blackouts or cable? Check out expressvpn.com to help you get access to all the live games. Sign up today using the link in the description to get 3 free months. Yo, what up, Bolt fam? It's the Director. Chargers fans, this is it, baby. The last preseason game of the offseason. Before you know it, we're going to be turning the corner and facing the Raiders in the regular season. Very exciting, man. We do have live-action Chargers football going on tomorrow, which we're going to allude to in this game preview. And, guys, this is a pretty big one in terms of how this roster is going to look by week 1. Okay, I like to call this the make or break week of the preseason because at least 27 players on the roster right now will not be Los Angeles Chargers by next week. And that is a pretty big number for the Chargers to consider in terms of who they're keeping and who they're letting go. So a massively important game that carries huge repercussions for the roster because I think the biggest thing I do want to emphasize is that the Chargers may elect to even add some more talent after this game because we're not the only team cutting 27 players. There's a lot of teams out there trimming the fat, and if the Chargers, let's say special teams, is still looking like hot garbage, we may elect to go even add some more players, which again puts other players' jobs in jeopardy. So this is a big game, guys. Big game for the Chargers depth, big game for the Chargers team and players. This game's going to carry some repercussions. We have to see improvement on special teams. It's going to be a big one. Now, I'm going to also take a light stab in this video at maybe lightly updating my 53 roster prediction as to who I think makes the team. Should be pretty good, as well as give you guys an update on J.C. Jackson, which we do have some good news there. It should be a pretty fun one. Now, before we do officially kick things off, guys, I also have to mention, because I get a million questions and DMs and emails even on the day of the game. If you guys are looking to watch the game, please, last preseason of the offseason, right? Last preseason game, please get set up with your VPN and your NFL Game Pass method before the game starts, because again, you want to make sure you are set up before the regular season. So that is to answer your question, how am I watching the games? Well, this is how I'm watching the game, and this is definitely beneficial to you guys to get set up beforehand, because it does take a little bit of time, but definitely worth it. Now, question in the comments for you guys as well. Again, kind of a simple one. Who would be the most shocking or dramatic cut this week after this game? You guys let me know in the comment section below, and as always, I'll give you guys my answer at the end of the video. Now, before we do kick off, guys, hit us up with a like and sub if you do enjoy this Chargers content. The small amount of time you guys take to hit the like, sub, and bell notification helps me out a lot. Let's get into this one. Lights, camera, action. The Chargers at Saints, Week 3 preseason game preview, the make or break week. It's going to be a big one, guys. Let's start things off. We've got a lot of things to talk about in this video, so let's just jump right into the J.C. Jackson injury update. Now, that day, wow, I got hit up a lot asking about, what's going on with J.C. Jackson. We're all sweating bullets. Of course, you guys know the luck when it comes to the Chargers and its players' health. Well, in this case, I think we've got some means to celebrate and have some optimism, right? Brandon Staley came out and said that this is not an injury, okay? He could not emphasize this enough. There is no injury to J.C. Jackson's ankle. What they had done was a very minor procedure in order to improve his comfort level. The way I understand it, he was trying to supplement this with other methods or whatever during the preseason, and they just came to the conclusion that let's just take care of it right now, get this guy up to 100% and leave it behind us. And on top of that, it sounds like, let's say, the recovery time does add means for even more optimism. There's a pretty good chance that he returns week 1 versus the Raiders. And again, at very worst, I think he returns week 2 or 3 versus the Chiefs or Jacksonville Jaguars. So we're going to see JC back very, very soon. One of the highlights of the offseason. He's going to be absolutely fantastic. To add a little sticky note to that, I'll also say that Kenneth Murray has returned, and he's looking to bounce back from his injury-riddled season last year as well. Now let's go ahead and update you guys on who's been cut since last week's game. Of course, we're going to see a much longer list next week. But as of right now, the Chargers most recently have cut Cameron Hunt, the guard, James McCourt, kicker, Tevin Campbell, who you're seeing on the screen right now, a longtime backup of the Chargers. He's been let go, as well as Damon Lloyd, the linebacker, and Ty Shelby competing for one of those edge positions. Of these guys, I'm definitely hurting a little bit for Damon Lloyd. I was really hoping that he would make the 53. He's looked fantastic, but everybody else, definitely, a sign of things to come. The Chargers are going to have to make some tough decisions. I'm sure Tevin Campbell did not come easily to them. And again, this is just the beginning. We have, 27 more players on that roster bubble in the coming weeks. I will also tack on there that the Chargers did sign cornerback Michael Jackett, formerly of the Philadelphia Eagles, I believe, who may be competing with Dean Leonard at this point. He kind of reads the same way. Very fast, very tall. It's going to make things a little bit more interesting. So let's move into the roster bubble segment of this video. And again, this is more of a general, what to look out for in this game, the positions that are, hotly contested in terms of competition. These are the positions I want you guys paying attention to because, again, officially, the Chargers need to cut this roster down from 80 players down to 53 by August 30th. That's just a handful of days after this game before the Chargers need to submit the final roster. And it's going to make or break a lot of players on this team versus the New Orleans Saints. So here's a few positions I want you guys to pay attention to versus the New Orleans Saints in this game. Let's go ahead and start with the position of running back. Now, Isaiah Spiller, injury update for him as well. He is week to week with an ankle injury, okay? And that's going to open up an opportunity for maybe another roster or another running back to make the initial roster in the next couple of days here, okay? And I'm actually seeing a lot of worry about the position of running back and running back two more specifically, okay? My soft opinion on the position right now is that Spiller is still my dude. Okay, I know that he wasn't the most explosive and big, head-turning running back of the offseason. He is a rookie after all, but I still do think he's going to develop into a very strong running back 2 option for the Chargers. Behind him, we also have some dudes that carry a little bit of upside as well. And Joshua Kelly, right? We're going to need to watch his number. I think 25 this season. Make sure that he shows us something in this game because in the stead of Isaiah Spiller, in my opinion, they're going to have somebody in there. And I think Joshua Kelly is going to be the dude. I think he's going to be on the roster for sure. The remaining running backs are the ones I want you guys to pay the most attention to. Larry Roundtree, Kevin Marks, and Letty Brown. I think one of these guys needs to make the roster because of the status of Isaiah Spiller. With him out, they may need to roster one more running back than they were planning to. And I think it's going to come down to one of these 3. Now, unfortunately for Larry Roundtree, I've kind of been saying this since he was drafted. I'm not quite sure if he's going to make the cut because of the other free agent guys that we have on the roster. One of them in particular, I do think, has a good shot at it. I think Larry Roundtree is on the bubble. He hasn't really shown us much upside. He may be able to fight for a spot with a solid performance on Friday, but you really never know. Kevin Marks has also not been too spectacular, one of the free agent acquisitions, so you guys know where I'm leading up to. Letty Brown has shown the most upside out of those 3 players in my opinion, okay? Particularly in the receiving game. I think Letty Brown has been very serviceable. So my guess is the Chargers, they may roster 4 to start the season. Austin Eckler, Spiller, Kelly, and Brown. And Brown could be one of those guys that maybe gets cut or moved to the practice squad once Isaiah Spiller returns to full health. And that's just kind of where I sit right now with the position. So keep an eye on Larry Roundtree, Kevin Marks, Letty Brown. Those are the 3 guys I think fighting for a spot right now. Quick note as well, I'll lump him in with the running backs. Obviously, I do think Horvath has won the job. Don't worry about Xander. He's going to make the 53, no doubt in my mind. Next up, let's move on to the wide receiver position very briefly because I think there's only a couple of players to really pay attention to this week. The biggest story of the offseason since the preseason games have begun has been Michael Bandy. Michael Bandy, despite a very tough game for the Chargers last week, was another very bright spot. Him and Josh Palmer were very, very good. And at this point, I think it feels wrong to consider cutting Michael Bandy. You're just going to have to make the room if you're the Chargers coaching staff, right? He just feels like he belongs. The budget Wes Welker, he shows too much upside, even on special teams. Keep Michael Bandy on the roster. Move some pieces if you have to. He's not going to clear waivers if the Chargers don't decide to add him to the official 53 this weekend. Now, Josh Palmer, also quick update on him. He has returned from concussion protocol. A lot of people were worried about him. He should be good by the regular season. I don't expect him to play in this game. There's really no reason to go out there and risk another concussion right away. But I do think he'll be ready versus the Raiders, seeing that he's already cleared the concussion protocol. He should be just fine. So Bandy and Reed, Joe Reed, I think are the two guys to watch this game. I think they're the ones competing for maybe that last wide receiver spot. And, you know, my money is on these guys end up making the roster. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, obviously, Josh Palmer, obviously, Guyton, and DeAndre Carter. And then I do think Michael Bandy rounds it out for a nice solid number of 6 wide receivers for the Chargers this season. I do think they have to make the room, and I think Michael Bandy makes the cut. All right, so quick wide receivers, that's what to look for. Quarterback's also going to be a very interesting one to watch this game, because I think the narrative may have evolved a little bit, even from last week, because you know, of the additional depth that's going to be needed at other positions on this roster. The Chargers seemingly revealed that 3 quarterbacks is the plan last week during that broadcast. It really felt like it's going to be Justin Herbert, Chase Daniel, and Easton Stick. I think since then, again, like I said, it's not firm at this point, because other positions needing that depth, the Bolts may elect to roster just one backup quarterback. And this means that Stick and Daniel are going to have to duke it out with the potential of only one of them making the team. Now, my guess, it's going to be Chase Daniel, as he does maybe offer more in terms of what he can do from the sideline. But that would leave the quarterback 3's fate, in this instance, Easton Stick, up to the staff and their roster decisions. So just kind of keep that in the back of your brain. They've said 3, but that may have changed even that quickly because of the status of other positions, like, let's say, running back. Maybe they need to get one more in there because of Isaiah Spiller and his injury right now. So we'll have to wait and see, but keep that in mind. Next up is the offensive line. This one got kind of interesting since last week. And, of course, the right tackle position being the biggest thing of note when it comes to how the Chargers' official, starting offensive line going to look. Well, as of right now, it feels like Trey Pipkins has won the job. I don't think they've stated it officially, but like a lot of us had predicted, Trey Pipkins looks to be the starting right tackle of the Chargers in week 1. While they also convert, I think, Storm Norton to swing tackle at this point. I think he was getting some reps on the left side in training camp recently. So not much to report here. It turns out it's somewhat heading in the direction that we all thought it would look at the point where we thought it would go. But the guys to at least take a look at this game are going to be Hymas, Sawyer, the backups, to maybe solidify their value behind the starters at this point. The only development I could guess, maybe comes out of this game that could dramatically change things is our faith in guard Jamari Sawyer. If Sawyer goes out there and, let's say, dominates, all of a sudden you're going to have yourself a lot of faith in that position if we decide to move Matt Filer. If Sawyer is really, really good at guard and he looks as good as maybe even close to Matt Filer, then maybe with a little bit more confidence you can move Matt Filer to that right tackle position, cut Storm Norton, and convert Trey Pipkins to swing tackle. That has to be in the back of everybody's minds when it comes to the offensive line this season. So just going to throw that out there one more time. Next up, we've got the tight end. Again, not much movement here in my opinion. I do think there is a chance that they roster 4. Again, very similarly to the situation we're looking at running back, because of the injury to Donald Parham, which again, I'm not quite sure when he's coming back. They may want to roster 1 more. Okay, and the guy I want you to keep an eye on is Camp Moyer, the former Oregon Duck. I think he's been, out of the backups, the most impressive and the most likely to make the team if they're waiting to, for Parham to come back. And then again, maybe Camp Moyer gets signed to the practice squad or something afterwards. But I do think there's a solid chance for him to make the team if he has, again, another good performance versus the Saints this week. Let's move into the defensive side of the ball now, starting with the defensive backs. This may be one of the more complex position groups in this video in terms of who's fighting for a backup spot, who ends up making the team, and what their impact on the team is going to be this season. So we do know that Tevon Campbell is gone, which is kind of a big deal. We saw a lot of the Chargers holding on to him for so many years. That's kind of a big move in terms of letting go of a long-time depth piece, and that's going to make things a little bit more interesting. Let's start with Dean Leonard. He's been having kind of a rough start to the preseason, and even though he is a recent draftee, his spot could be in jeopardy because of the huge, enormous mistakes that we've seen over the course of the first 2 preseason games. It's been pretty bad. There is a case to be made that Dean Leonard, of course, not the only culprit, but Dean Leonard could have been responsible for some of the losses in those games. And of course, the losses don't carry very much weight, at least to me, but they do carry the potential of even more mistakes where it really does count in the regular season. And I'm not quite sure if his roster spot is as firm as we all think. He needs to clean that up quite a bit, especially with the Chargers just recently signing Michael Jacket, who, again, he's another huge, fast, I think 6'2". He ran something like a 4.40, so not the fastest guy, but decently fast. He may be the competition to Dean Leonard. So we kind of have to keep that in mind. Keep an eye on 33. It's kind of weird seeing the number 33 not go out there and just slay every single game, but that's kind of what we're looking at right now. And again, also I don't know what his official number is, but also keep an eye on Michael Jacket, the new acquisition at cornerback for the Chargers. So my guess in terms of the Chargers roster, I think defensive back, they've got a roster at least 10, if not 11. At this point, I'm guessing, obviously, you got Derwin, Nasir, JT Woods, and Gilman at safety. I would think that it'd be kind of crazy for them to let go of Mark Webb after everything he's done this offseason. Of course, he's not healthy right now, but that's one where I hope and expect the Chargers to retain. Then outside of that, you got the cornerbacks, JC, Asante, Callahan, Davis, Jasir. Those guys I think are a lock. Dean Leonard, I think a lot depends on how they view Mark Webb, right? If they feel Mark Webb is more valuable in terms of what he can provide, then keep Mark Webb, right? He could be waived in favor for Dean even if the Chargers do feel like they need more cornerback depth. But at this point, I'm taking Webb. But you can maybe even convince me the Chargers roster 11 because of how DB heavy this scheme is going to look in 2022. All right, there's your defensive backs, one of the more complicated. Next up, we have the edge position. Now, this is going to be a tight battle because I do think we have some talent back there, either of which would make me feel very good about who's playing behind Joey Bosa or Khalil Mack. Of course, one of those positions is going to be taken by Chris Rumph, who's been one of the star-studded players of this depth in the preseason. He's been fantastic. But there's other guys fighting for that 4th spot, all right? Jamal Davis, who's pictured on the screen right now, has been very, very solid. I would say maybe his upside's a little bit more versus the run, which the Chargers certainly need help in, but he's been very, very good, and I've been very impressed with what I've seen in the preseason with him, in the offseason. The other guy is Egbule, who's been making some very solid plays, and both of these guys, I would say, are neck and neck at this time, and if I were to guess, only one of them makes the team. I'm actually going to put my money on Jamal Davis because he carries a bit more upside versus the run, but either way, those are going to be the guys that you want to watch at that position on Friday. Next up, we got the linebackers. Oof, I had to put his picture out on here, guys, because, again, he was one of those guys that I really hoped would make the team. Damon Lloyd is now gone. I hope that he gets scooped up by another team. He's been very, very talented this offseason. But outside of him, already have leaving the team, there's just another few names to monitor. Take a look at Troy Reeder, Nick Neiman, Ogbong Bamiga, and then Tyreek Maddox-Williams. I've been hearing a little bit of excitement around his name as well. He may be a sleeper to make the team. I'm not quite sure, but Tyreek Maddox-Williams, one of those guys to watch as well. So if I were to take a stab at it, I would say maybe we keep 5. Tranquil, Van Noy, Murray, Reeder, and then Nick Neiman. I think Neiman just carries too much special teams upside for them to let go of him right now. And again, we're seeing more in terms of numbers at the defensive back position because of the Chargers scheme than we're seeing in terms of linebacker, because we may not see linebacker as often as we see DBs in 2022. But those are the guys to keep an eye out on. And then lastly on the defense, we have the defensive line. Perhaps one of the most important positions to watch in this game because of how much movement and anticipation I see behind these guys playing at this position group, okay? This could be the last ride for Jerry Tillery. If Jerry Tillery goes out there and performs poorly versus backups once again, the Chargers could make their biggest offseason move in cutting the former first-round pick. And that's a pretty significant detail right there, man. The Chargers, as far as I know, love him. I'm sure as a human being, he's amazing. I know that the coaching staff adore him. He is a former first-round pick. He does carry that pedigree. But at this point, the Chargers and their depth behind these guys looks just too good to use a roster spot on hoping Jerry Tillery bounces back. I want you guys to look for Morgan Fox, Christian Covington, Braden Fayoko. These guys are the guys that have been shining and impressing in terms of this offseason, and I do expect to see more of that in this game versus the Saints, and I think it could be the make or break game for a lot of these guys. So, long story short, you want to keep the guys that are producing, that maybe were, undrafted or whatever, over the guy that is a former first-round pick that maybe hasn't been living up to his potential. The other guys I also want you to keep an eye out for are Carlo Kemp, who's been looking very solid these past couple of weeks, and Joe Gonziano. These guys are very tightly contested. Maybe one of those guys makes a team. But my guess, the Chargers are going to roster 6 defensive linemen. Sebastian Joseph-Day, Austin Johnson, Morgan Fox, Tito, Fayoko, and Covington. At this point, that's where I'm at. I feel like if I'm the Chargers, I cannot justify Tillery any longer, which it does kind of suck. I was really hoping, we're not any of us rooting against Jerry Tillery, but we're really hoping to see that growth over the Staley period come in a little bit quicker. Don't cut a guy like Fayoko or Covington in favor of Jerry Tillery at this point. Maybe Tillery goes out there and has a spectacular game and changes my mind, but at this point, that's kind of where I'm at. And then finally, the last position group, your special teams. I know, guys, last week was a disaster, a dumpster fire. It was horrible, and it honestly brought up a lot of anxiety for us Chargers fans because we've been here before, man, where we have a solid offense and a solid defense. It's the special teams that's our Achilles heel. We cannot let that be the case this season, okay? This is perhaps the biggest improvement that we have to see during this game, special teams. Now, to be clear, our featured players, right? These are all great players. Hopkins, J.K. Scott, Josh Harris, and DeAndre Carter. These guys are all great. Our kicker, our punter, our long snapper, and returner. All those guys look fantastic. What we need to see improvement on is this unit as a whole and their kick coverage. Holy crap, was that bad last week versus the Dallas Cowboys. We saw 2 returns for touchdowns. You cannot see that. Guys like Dean Leonard, JT Woods, among others, these guys can dramatically boost their stock with a solid special teams performance versus the Saints. We need to see improvement there. Because again, like Brandon Staley said last week, we're watching the entire NFL. The entire NFL is watching us. And if these guys can't get it done, we're going to bring in somebody who can. That's where I was alluding to at the top of the show, that the Chargers may not be done adding pieces this offseason either. If the special teams need some dramatic, turnover, then that's probably what we're going to see. But we have to wait and see how that shakes out versus the Saints in this final preseason game. So if it's a disaster like we saw last week, we could see some dramatic moving pieces during cut week, but we'll have to maybe cross our fingers that we do see some improvement this week. So that's going to do it for this game preview, more specifically of what to look for in this game. To answer my own question from the top of the video, who would be the most dramatic cut during this cut week? Again, I think it's for me going to be Jerry Tillery. Again, we're not rooting against him, but the Chargers just have too much talent playing behind him at this point. I feel like Morgan Fox is going to take over his role, and then the other guys are going to rotate in versus the run pass wherever their strengths may lie. That's going to be my answer for that. So to wrap up this video, this is the make or break week for a lot of players. Again, the Chargers need to get down from 80 down to 53. This is going to be a very big game for a lot of Chargers. Do I expect to see any starters take the field this week? Probably not, because the Chargers and their staff are going to need every opportunity available to observe and reflect on these guys fighting for these depth spots. So if you guys are looking for, let's say, again, another score prediction, I'm going to say the Chargers put up 21 and the Saints put up 24. I think the Chargers maybe lose out in the preseason, but that's not as important as the Chargers evaluating, let's say, special teams in these other position groups, making sure we're as firm as solid as possible before going into the regular season versus the Raiders week 1 on September 11th. So you guys let me know your thoughts and opinions on that in the comment section below. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. This has been the Director. Again, before the game starts, last chance before the preseason ends, please set up whatever method you guys are going to be watching the games with this year. Again, I highly recommend NFL Game Pass paired up with ExpressVPN, or any VPN, really. Get that set up ahead of time so you guys are ready in this game. You've tested it out. Everything works. and you're ready for the regular season, which again is just around the corner. Additionally, also keep an eye out for additional content, videos, and news this week, as cut week is going to be pretty dramatic. We may see some names coming in, lots of names going out. It's going to give us a really good look at what this final roster looks like before week 1. It's going to be a pretty busy one. So guys, let me know in the comment section below what your thoughts are. Again, thank you so much for joining me. This has been the Director. If you liked what you saw here, hit us up with a like and sub on your way out. We'll see you next time. And as always, bolt up and stay frosty. I have nothing against Jerry Tillery, but please, he's got to be one of the toughest decisions in the coming days. Chargers just gotta have to make it happen.